Hey guys, Andy here from Mediocre Hobbies coming at you with more Dragon Trappers Lodge goodness. As you guys know, I make a video for these guys every single month, and this month is no different. What is different though is some of the selections they have out for this month's releases. Obviously, they give you two different bundles every single month. One designed if you play RPG, and one designed if you play miniature war games. And you can subscribe to either of these on Patreon, whichever one suits you best, or you can decide to pay a little bit more and get both of them each and every month, which is pretty cool. Now, the model that captured my attention the most out of all of their bundles this year is this awesome Imperial dressed frog model. He is quite bizarre, but he jumped out at me because I'm spending so much time in the old world as a Slann mage priest. So my mind started reeling with the concept of what happened if a Slann mage priest was captured and persuaded to serve alongside an Empire army. What would that look like? That's what we're going to find out in today's video. Before I get into it though, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of my active patrons. Without you guys, I could not continue doing what I am doing. If you're interested in getting involved with that and getting all the benefits, there's links in the description below. You get an extra video every single week and access to a private Discord server where we run a bunch of events and giveaways and all sorts of other stuff like that. So that's something that piques your interest. Like I said, it's in the description below. Okay, without further ado, let's get stuck in to this month's model. So this is the awesome kind of Imperial Slann miniature that I have chosen to print and paint from Dragon Trappers this month. As you can see, it's quite a spectacular piece. It does come with a molded base, but it is not a molded base that I shall be using, because obviously I want to use this piece in Warhammer the Old World to represent a level 4 wizard in one of my Imperial armies. Is that madness? Yes, it's quite bizarre. I don't honestly believe that a Slann would ever serve with or for an Imperial army. They are probably the most intellectual beings that exist in the old world. But I still think it's a funny concept. Like I said at the beginning, my idea for where this guy came from was an Empire expedition stumbled across a battle between Lizardmen and Chaos in Lustria, which was a common enough occurrence. At the end of the battle, everything was pretty much destroyed or dead. They fought to a stalemate. The Slann using quite large quantities of its own magical power to defeat the Chaos army. Basically just ruined himself, fell into a deep coma-like slumber, and the Empire army, thinking that he was just some sort of crazy creature, decided to take him back to the Empire to be sold. So this Slann woke at some point during this journey, knowing full well that he was in the clutches of an Empire force, and not 100% sure how to get back to Lustria without any of his minions around. Although Slanns are very, very capable fighters, or sorcerers, they don't pretty much do anything else for themselves. They have attendants and Saurus and Crocs, all the other bits and pieces around to keep them safe and secure. Also, this being will have touched the ground, which will have been imbued by chaos. Slanns ride palanquins because the ground is so imbued with chaos. They considered themselves to be tainted if they touched it. So I don't know whether perhaps this Slann, now knowing that he has been touched by chaos slightly, or even if he's just perceived to be touched by chaos by the rest of the Lizardmen force, the other Slanns, maybe will be exiled or destroyed by them. So maybe decide to bide his time and take his chances fighting alongside the Empire. Or when he'll reveal himself as a glorious and powerful wizard, or whether he'll just be some sort of funny mascot, I'm not 100% sure. But once I saw a Slann with puffy sleeves and a big feathered hat, I knew he was going to be painted like an Empire soldier. Whenever I get to do cool, fun projects like this, where I'm not particularly showing anybody the kind of how-to paint of a thing like this, where I just get to kind of enjoy the process and I'm not painting something for like Games Workshop, for instance, I love using the Two Thin Coats range from Duncan. It is just one of my favorite ranges of paints. I find the Triad system spectacular and I love testing out all the different variants. So for this one, I've gone for the green color Triad from the Wave 2 paints, not a set of 3 greens that I've tried before, and I was very curious to see how they would turn out, and they did in no way, shape or form disappoint. Just a big angry Kermit the Frog, I think. So, but as you can see, he's lazing about. He would look really good on some sort of Imperial palanquin. Like if he got taken back to the Empire, would he then try and create himself or have another palanquin created for him? And if a palanquin was created for him by the Empire as opposed to you know, the stone smiths or stone masons of Lustria, what would it look like? Maybe he would ride around on something like a war altar, being wheeled into battle and casting his ferocious powers. Who knows? That's something I don't touch on in this video, as I do not give him his base. I do not figure out how he's going to be based or mounted or anything like that, but it is something I will do in the very near future. Obviously this guy's going to fit into my new kind of, not quite border prince force, but my Bretonnian / Empire / Kislevite / mercenary force for order that I am doing for the old world. And I think he'd be quite an interesting addition for one of those wizards. Just a little bit more characterful, a little bit more charm. I find the old world to be incredibly freeing when it goes to what represents what metal. It's almost like a miniature agnostic games with a bunch of things. Games which are letting you have a bunch of conversion options and different things, and they give you a rough idea of you can use this to represent this group or this model or this character, but obviously you could use other things if you want to, which I find kind of fun. As you can see, the skin tone for these particular pieces worked out a treat. I really did like the color I ended up with the green. And of course, I'm going to follow through with different triads for the other parts of this particular piece. So I'm going to go with the red and black scheme, which I have been using so far for a bunch of my Bretonnian characters and stuff like that. And we'll follow through to a bunch of other things. Now, before I jump in and we talk about the rest of the colors that I used and get this guy finished, I will take a brief gap now, and we will talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is of course Dragon Trappers Lodge. These are the awesome creators who made this particular miniature this month. Now, like I said, they have been a supporter of the channel for many months now, and I've basically gotten to print and paint one of their awesome pieces each and every month. And each and every month it is quite a challenge to choose which piece to print and paint, because they're all awesome. Like, look at this guy, definitely an awesome Skaven wizard, and that's what I'm going to print him out and use him as. Obviously you've got your merchant on his snail, but basically the simple way of doing it is they have a soldier tier and a trapper tier. So the basic idea is you can either choose to be, hey, there's my Slaan, like how cool is he? You can choose to subscribe for the tier which is based around Dungeons and Dragons, so it gives you a bunch of different characters and a scenario and the bad guys and all that to fight it. The other tier gives you access to more of a miniature, miniature war game style, so you'll get a selection of miniatures to represent an army or a force, and that's compatible with a bunch of miniature agnostic games out there as well, which is really good. Or you can go for the slightly higher tier, which will give you access to all the miniatures every single month. The Critterfolk of Bluewoods Barrows is definitely giving you, look at the little mice warrior knights, they're awesome. The Palanquin. The Chosen of Kamai this is part 3 of this, and I have been in love with all of the parts of this. Whenever they tell the joke of the, you know, what do guys think about it every day, and that's the Holy Roman Empire, but for me it's always been more of the Asian themed things, the Chinese and Japanese aesthetic, especially in medieval forces or in the fantasy side of things, has always struck a chord with me. I love it so much, so I will be printing out quite large quantities of these guys and getting them done for an army. I love them. If you guys want to check out more of their trapper tier, their soldier tier, or the tier that gives you access to both, I will leave it all linked in the description below. I suggest you all check it out for yourselves. It'll definitely be worth your while. Okay, now back to my Imperial Slann. I would also like to know what you guys think of my crazy idea to have an Imperial Slann miniature represented in the old world. Do you think it's ridiculous? Like, I genuinely know I've read pretty much most of the old world books. Well, we just called them Warhammer Fantasy back in the day. I have read about Slans and all sorts. I had a huge Lizardmen army back in the day. I do know that these things have an intellect which far exceeds any other being that exists in Warhammer Fantasy. I'm not saying that these guys would indeed ever serve Empire. They would think their way out of it. This kind of conflict or that kind of persuasion would be very much beneath them, but I think it's funny to think of one that's slightly not. Maybe his spawning was a little bit more wacky and he wanted to try something new. So obviously I was going in for the reds for the obviously the red parts. Another triad, but I did the first coat of red, and then I just wanted to block in all the black areas, so I could basically know where I need to layer, and just getting those 2 block colors in is going to be really useful. So that's where I went over to the Doom Death black color, and decided to black in all the other parts. Now, obviously, I had the alternate scheme, the red and black. There's a lot more blacker than red, and I'm not 100% sure whether I should have gone more red than black or more black than red. You'll see when all the base coats appear on the black here in a moment. You will see kind of how he looks. And I'm not sure whether if I had have reversed it, there would have been a lot more red. He would have been a lot more bright and vibrant. But part of me also thinks that because those colors are the way they are, there's not so much red. It doesn't draw too much attention away from the skin, and the skin is definitely the part of the miniature that I'm the most proud of, and the bit that I kind of want to stand out. But I guess each to their own in that respect. As you can see, he is quite dark, but I think that, like I said, it accents the skin a lot more. Now, but obviously the red and the black are going to get brought up another 2 stages for each, and then we're going to add a splash of color on the feathers on the top as well. But let's figure how that works. So Sanguine Scarlet, the mid-tone for the Two Thin Coats red stage, is going to go in now. As you can see, I've got a fine pointed brush now. I'm taking my time and just catching those raised areas and making sure the nice shadowed areas stay where they're supposed to be, not painting those in or filling those in. It is hard to show these particular painting stages off, as especially with the red, I'm painting in between like crevices with each and every stroke, so it can be a little bit challenging at times. So it is all about taking your time. You see the red starts to pop, but we are going to do it again. We're going to jump up to Demon Red, which is the final highlight of that. Once again, we are going to go in, but this is just a much finer stroke. Just adding basically the brightest red you can find for the final highlight, which will make all of that pop and scream out at you. But like I said, because there's not so much of it, I don't think it's overpowering the piece. And this kind of painting, this like I said at the start, this 3 stages, the triad system, I find it very relaxing. It's basically just layering for, I don't know, an entire miniature's worth of painting, which I love it. If you guys have never tried the Duncan Rhodes Two Thin Coats range from Transatlantic Games, I do suggest you give it a try. I'm not sponsored or supported by them in any way, shape or form. That's not entirely true. They did send me Wave 2, but I bought Wave 1 with the original Kickstarter. But just buy one set of the triads, 3 colors. Choose the red or the skin. I really like the skin tone, the Caucasian skin tone. Buy those 3 paints and give them a try. I think that's the best way of testing out this range. If you enjoy the triad system, then perhaps invest in more paints. If not, then you've only spent 9 quid or whatever on 3 paints. So yeah. So the mid-tone with the black, it is really hard to notice the color difference in the black because we are jumping up to one that has a little bit of gray in it. The final highlight will be the Dungeon Stone Gray, which is a really, really dark gray, which will be the final highlight for the black. Now I did go a little bit overboard with that because at this stage I did think the black was still looking a little flat. And because the miniature is basically just 3 primary colors, you know, it's red, green and black. I did want it to jump out just a little bit more, so I spent a little bit of time and highlighted that gray in there. And yeah, I was happy with it. There wasn't a lot of other details to paint on him. I briefly thought about adding another color around his lips or something like that, but I decided that I was so happy with the skin tone, I was afraid that I would make a mess of it and that I would be regretting it. So I decided to leave it like that. And after this stage, all I really did was tackled his eyes. Because you can't have a giant hypno toad without crazy yellow and black eyes, right? So let's do that. Like I said, I do really kind of wish that I could put him into a basin, into a scene right here, right now, so I could see what he was going to kind of finally look like. But yeah. Okay, so we're going to work on the big feathers. So we're going to go for a turquoise. The reason we're going to go for turquoise is I love turquoise. And it is the feather color of my Stirland Empire army, so perhaps he blends in with them a little bit more. I always thought if you're an elite or a veteran in Empire, you're going to have turquoise feathers. That's how I played across my entire army. So I'm going to continue with this guy. Of course, I'm going up in 3 stages, which is more than I've ever done with a feather in an Empire army. But this guy should draw some attention, I feel, in my army. Dragon Trappers, I think, has also stepped up their game quite a lot in the last kind of 5-6 months. Their miniatures before were fantastic. They were definitely very serviceable, and they were kind of a cut above the rest, but now there's something special to them. Those Asian aesthetic miniatures that I was talking about before, they've given us a bunch of different kind of Chinese and Japanese style dragons, and I want to print each and every one of them because they are absolutely staggering. I'm in love with them. But I do have that bizarre thing inside of me that wants to use them for have them for a purpose. Like, I really struggle with the concept of printing and painting a miniature for the sake of printing and painting a miniature. I always like at the end to be like, that goes in this army, that's part of that collection. So I wish I could find a use for those dragons in something like the old world. Dark Elf or High Elf Dragon, maybe? Who knows? Dark Sun Yellow was brought in for his eyes. Being as careful as possible. Now these are very finely sculpted, so there is indeed sunken pupils. So it's actually very easy to get a bit of black paint and then just paint in those bits. And then what I didn't show is I did actually add a layer of ard coat over those eyes when everything was dry to give them the kind of glowy effect, not glowy effect, but the glistening effect. And that's literally the last step that I did for this particular piece. And this gave me my finished Empire Slaan, my Hypnotoad. I do have a bunch of nice photos of what he actually will look like on a tabletop here in a second. And once again, little pieces like this just reset me. They're just so much fun to do. Like, I'm filled with pride when it's finished. I love the result. And like I said, I kind of can't wait to put him on a table and try and explain the concept of him to the other people, what he is, and kind of gauge their reactions and have a lot of fun with it like that. So hopefully you guys could tell how much I enjoyed this, and you check it out in the description below for yourself. Okay guys, I'm not gonna lie, this one makes me happy. It was a lot of fun to paint. I definitely think he suits my idea of a Slaan mage priest that has been captured, persuaded, or I don't know, stolen from the Lizardmen forces. The only question is, do I put him on a palanquin or what? How should he be transported around the battlefield? Slaans don't touch the ground as it's covered in chaos energy, so if you guys have any ideas for that, please do let me know. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a like. Make sure you check out Dragon Trappers Lodge using the links below, and you check out all the awesome models they have available, not just Imperial Frogs. And make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on all future releases and the Titan giveaway at the end of the year. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end. I'll see you in the next one.